In this particular lecture, let's learn how we could go ahead and get the values which are present here and kind of display them up over here. So first of all, we will work with getting the values for the labels which we have here. So in JavaScript, whenever you have to get access to values on the template or on the page, you always go ahead and inspect a particular element which you want to access and kind of take a look at the name or ID associated with that particular table. So this table which we have up over here, we have not named it anything yet. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So I would go inside the tables which we have just created. So these are the tables, I guess, which we have created right up over here. And for this table, we have named this thing as a 30-day table. And we have also named this one as 30-day table as well. But in reality, this is categorical table, or we could say that this is a category sum table. So let's replace the name of this with cat sum table. And remember that we have named the second table as cat sum table. The first one is still named 30-day table. And once we have named this particular table, now we will go ahead and try to get access to that particular table inside JavaScript. So here, if I go back to the browser, let's inspect this one more time, which is the entire table here. And I'm not sure if you're able to view this, so I'll zoom in a little bit. And let's view this entire table up over here, which we have. So this is the left table, the content of that left table. So let's collab this left one. Let's take a look at this right one. If I hit refresh, as you can see, it says that this table which we have up over here is cat sum table. And it kind of is showing up 2 dashes here. I'm not sure why. Okay, so now that problem is fixed. And now it says that this is a cat sum table. So now inside this cat sum table, we could open this thing up, and here you'll be able to see that we have multiple divs here. So we want to get the cat sum table, and we want to get all the divs which we have in there. So in order to get that in JavaScript, I would go back to VS Code, go inside the script tag which we have just created, and right before where we have this chart logic, I would add my own script here. So I would say document.getElementById, and I want to get the cat sum table. So yeah, I would say cat sum table. And once I have access to this table, in there I want to get the divs which we have in there. So we have multiple divs in this table. So here I would say get elements by tag name, because as we want to get the div elements, we will specify the tag as div. And now this is going to give me a whole bunch of list of divs. So let's save this in a variable. So I would say const cat sum div equals this. So now once we have those particular divs, let's actually console log those divs and see the kind of result we have in there. So console.log, let's say I want to console log the cat sum div which we have. So I'll go back here, go to console, hit refresh, and as you can see, we have those particular divs in here. And now out of those divs, if I again go back to the inspector and again inspect this table, we have the cat sum table. Inside these divs, we again have a span, and then we have a div. And again, we have one span which actually shows up the category. And then we have another div here, which kind of shows up the actual expense which we have. So we have a div span which contains a business, and then we have div span which contains this value here. So we want to get these two different values and save them into two different set of arrays. So here I would create two brand new arrays. So the first one is going to be for saving the categories. So I would say const cats, which is categories. So I would say this is going to be an empty array for now. And now once we have the cat sums, we are going to extract the actual name values like business, personal, and everything from that particular cat sum div. So that means we have to loop through the cat sum div. So I would add a for loop. So for I equals 0, I less than cat sum div dot length, which means the length of the entire array, I plus plus. And the very first thing which we have here is that whenever the index value is 0, that is, whenever the index value is even, we are going to get the category values, and whenever the index values are odd, we are going to get the expense. So here I'll say if I mod 2, which means that if you take the index value and divide it by 2, if this is equal to 1, that means the number is an odd number. And if the number is odd number, that is going to give us the value for the expense. Or else if the number is even, it's actually going to give me this value here, which is the category value. And the category values have to be stored in cats. So here I would say cats.push. And in order to get the value from this div, I would say cat sum div. I want to get the 0th element in this case, and therefore I will specify I here because the initial value of I would be 0. And this is actually going to give me the span tag which I have here, which is the entire span tag, but instead I want the inner value, which is food, or let's say business in this case. So here I would say dot inner text, because we are interested in the text which is inside of it. Now once we have this value gets saved into cats. Now to test this, you could also console log cats and see the kind of result you would get. So console log cats. If I go back, go to the console, hit refresh, as you can see, we get the categories as business, food, and personal. Now once we have these categories saved in there, we could finally pass those categories to this particular chart which we have. So passing that is actually quite simple. In here, for the labels which we have, instead of saying labels, I could simply go ahead and replace this entirely with array which is cats. So if I do that, hit refresh, now we have business, food, and personal. And the values are not filled up properly here because we have not assigned the other values for the data, but we are going to do that soon. But now we have the categories here. Now, just as we have gotten access to the categories, in the next lecture, let's also get access to the data here. And getting access to the data is quite simple. We just have to go ahead and instead of getting the even values, we get the odd values here. So let's do that in the next lecture.